For years, Donald Trump pushed the same false story about Barack Obama. But one quiet night inside the Oval Office, that story ended. Not with a shout, but with a single truth that left Trump speechless. It was late afternoon inside the White House. Quiet, almost too quiet. Rain was falling softly outside, tapping against the tall windows like a slow, steady drumbeat. Inside, the Oval Office glowed with that familiar golden light, elegant, calm, but tonight, heavy with something else. President Donald Trump had called for a private meeting. No cameras, no press, no speeches. Just two men, one holding power, the other who once held it. Barack Obama had been invited back to discuss what Trump described as the nation's direction. It sounded respectful on paper, but behind those words was a tension both men could feel before they even sat down. When Obama walked into the room, he carried himself with that calm, steady confidence the world knew so well. Trump stood near his desk, straightening his tie, trying to appear casual, but there was an edge in his eyes, that look of a man ready to fight, not talk. The air was thick, heavy with old history, years of rivalry, unspoken words, and unfinished business. Aides had been ordered to leave the room. The door closed with a firm click. For a few seconds, neither man spoke. Only the faint hum of the air conditioner filled the silence. Finally, Trump broke it. "Barack," he said, with that half-smirk he often wore when he wanted to sound polite but in control. "I wanted to have this talk for a long time. We need to be honest about what's really going on in this country." Obama nodded, his hands clasped calmly on his lap. "That's what I'm here for," he said softly. Trump paced slowly behind his desk, the sound of his footsteps echoing in the room. "I've been looking at things, documents, records, and I have to say there are still questions. Serious ones." Obama tilted his head slightly. "Questions about what?" Trump turned, his voice growing louder. "About you. About where you're really from. About that birth certificate." The words hung in the air like thunder before a storm. Obama didn't flinch. Not even a blink. It wasn't the first time he'd heard it. Not even close. But hearing it here now, inside the same room where history is written, felt different. Trump continued, voice rising with every sentence. "I mean, people are still talking about it. There's evidence, there are inconsistencies, and I think you know that." He leaned forward, hands on the desk, eyes locked on Obama. "It was never proven right. That certificate, the one you showed, people say it's fake. You know it, and I know it." Obama's calm face didn't change, but behind that stillness there was something sharper, quiet strength. He finally spoke. "Mr. President," he said evenly, "this again?" Trump's tone sharpened. "This again? Barack, it's never gone away. The American people deserve the truth." For a moment, neither of them moved. The rain outside grew louder, almost as if the sky itself was listening. Obama leaned back in his chair and exhaled slowly. Then, with that steady, deliberate calm that always made people stop and listen, he said, "The truth doesn't vanish because someone shouts louder. It stays the same, even when people try to bury it." Trump frowned, unimpressed. "You've always got a nice speech ready, don't you?" Obama didn't reply. Instead, he reached for the leather folder he had brought with him and placed it on the table between them. It landed with a soft but firm sound. "Since you're asking again," he said, "let's put this to rest once and for all." He opened the folder, revealing several official documents, neatly arranged and clearly marked. Birth certificate, verification letter, government seals, each stamped, signed, and real. He slid them across the table. Trump stared down at them but didn't touch. Obama's voice stayed calm but firm. "The truth doesn't change, Mr. President. You can question it 1,000 times, but it won't make it any less true." For the first time, Trump looked unsettled. His jaw tightened. But instead of backing down, he crossed his arms and leaned closer. "You think that piece of paper proves everything?" He said. "You think that ends it?" Obama leaned forward too, their faces now only a few feet apart. "No," he said quietly. "I think your need to ask says more than the answer ever could." The silence that followed was thick enough to cut through. You could almost feel the power shift, slow, invisible, but real. Trump straightened up, adjusting his jacket, clearly frustrated. Obama didn't move. He was done defending facts. Then, just as Trump opened his mouth to continue, Obama raised a hand, just slightly, and said, "You want the truth? Look at those documents. Everything you're searching for is right there. But maybe you're not looking for truth, Donald. Maybe you're looking for attention." Trump froze. For a moment, the room went completely still. Outside, thunder rumbled. Inside, history was quietly repeating itself. The same battle between noise and reason, ego and truth. And that was only the beginning. Because what came next would change everything. The folder sat between them like a silent witness, thick, heavy, and impossible to ignore. The soft sound of rain outside faded into the background. You could almost hear the hum of tension filling the air instead. Trump stared down at the documents. His jaw twitched, eyes scanning the first page without really reading it. The golden light of the room bounced off the presidential seal, glowing across the papers that could silence years of accusations in seconds. But he didn't touch them. He didn't even move. Obama sat perfectly still. His hands were calm, fingers interlaced. Not defensive, not aggressive, just controlled. Then, in that steady voice everyone knew, calm but impossible to ignore, Obama said, "You've asked for proof. There it is. My birth record verified by the state of Hawaii, signed, sealed, authenticated. The same document you've spent years questioning." Trump looked up, his tone sharp. "You expect me to just believe that? Come on, Barack. You and I both know papers can be faked." Obama gave a small smile. "And words can be twisted." For a moment, the two men just stared at each other, the silence loud enough to make the air feel heavy. Trump leaned forward, lowering his voice. "I'm not doing this to attack you. I'm doing this for the American people. They deserve the truth." Obama nodded slowly. "And yet when the truth is right in front of you, you still can't accept it. That's not about the people, Donald. That's about pride." Trump's eyes narrowed. "Pride? I don't need pride. I built an empire." Obama's tone didn't change. "And I built trust. You see the difference?" The words hung in the air. Even the faint hum of the air conditioner seemed to pause. Trump pushed back in his chair, frustration rising in his voice. "You think you're smarter than everyone. You talk smooth, you smile, but you're not fooling anyone. People know something's off." Obama leaned forward slightly, his eyes locked on Trump's. "People know what they're told to know. You repeat a lie long enough and it becomes noise, and the truth gets lost under it." He glanced at the folder again. "But the truth doesn't go away just because someone talks louder." For the first time, Trump didn't have a quick comeback. His lips parted slightly, but no words came out. Obama used the silence. He stood up slowly and walked toward the window, looking out at the darkening sky. "Donald," he said quietly, "do you know what leadership really means?" Trump turned in his chair but didn't answer. "It's not about control," Obama continued. "It's not about headlines or who wins the argument. Leadership is about carrying truth even when it's inconvenient. Especially when it's inconvenient." He turned back toward Trump. "When I ran this office, I made mistakes. Every leader does. But I never had to create distractions to hide them." Trump's hands clenched slightly on the armrest. His face stayed still, but his knuckles turned white. Obama walked back toward the table, stopping just across from him. "Ask yourself, what kind of country do we become when the truth becomes optional? When lies sound better than facts?" Trump shifted in his chair, trying to keep control. "You don't know what it's like now. People don't want calm speeches and they want strength." Obama nodded, his eyes steady. "Strength without truth is just noise. And noise doesn't lead, it drowns." That line hit hard. The air between them felt electric. Trump stood up suddenly, trying to reclaim control. "You think you can come in here and lecture me in my office?" Obama didn't move. He stayed calm, his voice almost a whisper now. "This office doesn't belong to either of us. It belongs to the truth we protect while we sit in it." The words landed like thunder, quiet, but impossible to ignore. Trump exhaled sharply and looked back at the folder again. The documents lay open, undeniable. He knew it. Obama knew it. Everyone in that room, even the silent aides just beyond the door, knew it. But instead of reaching for the papers, Trump turned away. He walked behind his desk, avoiding Obama's gaze. His reflection in the window looked smaller, almost unsure. Obama watched him for a moment, then said, "You wanted honesty. You got it. But I wonder, what happens when honesty isn't what you're looking for?" Trump didn't answer. He just stood there, shoulders tense, eyes fixed on the glass. Obama picked up the folder and gently tapped it closed. "I brought this for you," he said, "not because I owe it to you, but because truth doesn't need permission to exist." He placed the folder back on the desk. "Keep it. Maybe one day you'll read it." Trump looked at him, speechless. Obama started to walk toward the door, then paused. Without turning around, he said quietly, "The more you run from the truth, Donald, the faster it catches up." Then he left the room, calm, composed, and certain. Trump stood alone, staring at the closed folder. His reflection in the window looked back at him, silent, distorted, and uncertain. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. Inside, something had shifted. The calm was over. The storm was just beginning. The room was still humming with tension when Obama stopped at the door. He had already said what needed to be said, but something in Trump's silence made him turn back. Trump was still standing behind his desk, hands gripping the edge, staring down at the folder like it was a ticking bomb. He didn't look at Obama, he didn't have to. The air between them was charged. Obama took a slow step back toward the table. His voice, calm as ever, broke the silence. "Tell me something, Donald. You and Ivanka have a son, right?" For a second, Trump froze. The question came out of nowhere. His head jerked up, confusion flashing across his face. What does that have to do with anything? His tone was sharp, defensive. Obama didn't answer. He just watched him, that same steady stare that always seemed to see straight through people. Trump laughed awkwardly, trying to brush it off. "You're changing the subject." Classic move, but Obama stayed quiet. The silence stretched again, long enough to make Trump's smirk fade. The sound of rain tapping against the window filled the room like a slow countdown. Trump shifted in his seat, trying to recover control. "You're not going to twist this, Barack. We were talking about you, not my family." Obama's voice stayed calm. "Exactly. That's what you do. You point fingers, build distractions, anything to avoid the truth. You want to talk about my birth certificate, but what if people started asking questions about you? About the way you run things here? About your own family?" Trump's eyebrows rose. "Are you threatening me?" Obama took another step closer to the desk, his tone still low but each word sharper than the last. "No, I'm asking how it feels. When someone drags your name, your family, your life into a rumor that doesn't end, no matter how many facts you show them." Trump looked away. For the first time, his voice wavered. "That's not the same thing." Obama tilted his head slightly. "Isn't it?" The tension in the room shifted. You could feel it, that uneasy moment when confidence starts to crack. Trump tried to fire back, words tumbling out too fast. "People love my family. They respect what we've done. You wouldn't understand that." Obama interrupted gently. "Respect isn't built on fear or fame. It's built on truth." Trump glared at him. "You think you've got it all figured out, don't you? You think standing there calm makes you right?" Obama's eyes didn't leave him. "No. Facts make me right." The words landed heavy. Then Obama reached into his folder again, this time pulling out a smaller envelope. He set it on the desk, the sound soft but deliberate. "Inside this," he said, "are files connected to you and Ivanka. Official records, business links, communications. I've seen enough to know what's in there matters." Trump's eyes widened slightly. You've been digging into my family?" Obama stayed steady. "No, I haven't. The truth has a way of finding its own light, whether you hide it or not." Trump clenched his fists. "You release that and it'll backfire." Obama gave a quiet half-smile. "Only if it's false, and we both know it isn't." The silence that followed was deafening. Even the rain outside seemed to stop for a moment. Then softly, Obama said, "Be careful, Donald. The truth is patient. It doesn't disappear when ignored. It waits." Trump stepped closer, his voice shaking with anger. "You walk in here with accusations and expect me to sit back? You think you scare me?" Obama leaned in slightly, voice barely above a whisper. "No, but I think the truth does." Trump opened his mouth, ready to snap back, but nothing came out. His face was red, his breathing quick. The man known for dominating every conversation suddenly had no control over this one. Obama picked up the folder again, tapped the papers neatly into place, and said quietly, "You wanted to question my truth. I just asked you to look at your own." He turned to leave once more. Trump, desperate to regain ground, called out, You're clever, I'll give you that. Always the performer. He forced a grin and extended his hand. No hard feelings, right? Obama looked at the hand, then back at Trump's eyes. For a moment it seemed he might take it. But then, slowly, deliberately, he let his hands fall to his sides instead. No hard feelings, he said softly. Just lessons. And with that, he turned and walked toward the door. His footsteps echoed across the marble floor. Steady, certain, final. Trump stood motionless, hands still half raised, the grin fading. The door closed behind Obama with a quiet click, leaving Trump alone in the dim light of the Oval Office. The room felt colder now, emptier, as if something had been taken from it. He looked at the folder on his desk. The envelope with his name on it was still there, untouched. For the first time that night, Trump looked unsure. Outside, the rain had stopped. But inside, the storm had only just begun. The door was half open when Obama stopped. His reflection in the polished wood caught his attention. Calm face, sharp eyes, not a hint of regret. Behind him, the silence from the Oval Office felt heavier than ever. Trump hadn't moved. He was still standing by the desk, shoulders tight, his jaw clenched so hard you could almost hear it. His pride wouldn't let him show weakness, but his silence said everything. Obama turned slightly, his voice steady but cold. You know, he said, truth doesn't go away just because you refuse to face it. It waits. It always does. Trump let out a short laugh, the kind that wasn't really laughter, more like a mask. You think you've made a point tonight, huh? You think this little performance of yours means anything? Obama took a step closer, the room lights reflecting off his calm expression. No performance, Donald. Just a reminder, the world doesn't bend for one man's ego. Not yours, not mine. Trump slammed his hand against the desk. Don't lecture me about ego. I built this country back up. People love me. You just show up when the cameras roll. Obama didn't flinch. And yet here we are. No cameras, no crowd. Just truth staring you in the face. The two men locked eyes, one burning with anger, the other steady as stone. Trump finally broke the stare and sat down, leaning back in his chair with a sigh that sounded more like defeat than relief. You don't get it, Obama, you never did. People don't care about your calm speeches or your truth. They want results. Obama gave a small, almost sympathetic smile. Results built on lies don't last. They collapse. Always. Trump scoffed, but his eyes darted toward the folder still lying on the desk. The envelope Obama had placed earlier sat like a silent threat. Plain, white, and powerful. You wouldn't dare, Trump muttered, his voice quieter now. You wouldn't release whatever's in there. That would destroy. Obama cut him off gently. It would reveal, not destroy. There's a difference. The tension crackled between them again, thick enough to taste. Trump leaned forward, voice low. You think you scare me with your documents and your calm words? I've faced worse. I've survived worse. Obama stepped closer to the desk, his tone calm but firm. Then you already know how much survival costs when truth isn't on your side. Trump stood up again, his voice rising. You talk about truth like it's yours to control. You think people will side with you? They won't. They'll call this another attack. Another setup, Obama shook his head. No, Donald. This isn't about sides. It's about what kind of example a leader sets, for the people watching, for the next generation, for your own family. That last line landed like a punch. Trump froze for half a second, just enough for the weight of it to sink in. His face hardened again, but the spark of defensiveness was there. You talk about family, he said, his voice trembling slightly. You don't know mine. Obama's tone softened, but only a little. Maybe not. But I know what power does to people when it isn't balanced by truth. I've seen what it does to those around you. For the first time, Trump didn't have a comeback. The words hung in the air, heavy, true, impossible to dodge. Obama reached the desk and placed a single hand on it, leaning forward slightly. His voice dropped low, serious. You've got influence, Donald. Use it wisely. The more you twist the truth, the faster it unravels. And when it does, it doesn't just take you down. It takes everyone who believed in you. Trump swallowed hard. Are you threatening me? Obama straightened, adjusting his jacket. No, I'm warning you. There's a difference. That pause, that heavy, pointed silence, stretched longer than either expected. Then, in a surprising move, Trump stood and extended his hand again. You're clever, Barack. I'll give you that. Maybe too clever. Let's not turn this into something ugly. Shake on it. Obama looked down at the outstretched hand. The same hand that had just slammed the desk in anger. The same hand that had signed off on words meant to divide. For a moment, he considered it. His expression softened slightly, maybe even out of habit, the instinct to end conflict with civility. But then something shifted in his eyes. He took a slow step back. No handshake today, Donald. Not until truth means something again. Trump blinked, stunned. You're serious? Obama gave a single nod. Completely. Without another word, he turned toward the door. The sound of his shoes echoed. Firm, deliberate, final. The Secret Service agents waiting outside stood straight as he passed. He didn't look back. Trump was left standing there, his hand still hanging in midair, slowly lowering as the reality set in. For once, there were no words, no comebacks, no cameras, no crowd to cheer him on. Just the faint hum of the Oval Office lights and the quiet truth that power alone couldn't save him from the weight of what had just happened. The door closed with a muted click, sealing the moment like a scene that would echo in history. One man walking away in silence, the other left surrounded by questions he could no longer control. The heavy doors of the Oval Office closed behind Barack Obama with a soft click. That sound, small, almost quiet, felt like thunder inside the White House. Inside, Trump stood frozen. The man known for never backing down, never staying quiet, suddenly found himself speechless. His hand, still half raised from that rejected handshake, slowly fell to his side. For a long moment, there was only silence. The kind of silence that doesn't just fill a room, it weighs on it. The rain outside had stopped. But the storm inside those walls was far from over. Trump turned toward the large window overlooking the south lawn. The reflection staring back at him looked older, wearier, like a man who had just lost control of a story he thought he owned. He glanced back at the folder on his desk. That simple, white envelope with his name written on it in black ink. It seemed harmless, ordinary, yet it held more power than any speech, any tweet, any rally. He picked it up but didn't open it. His fingers trembled slightly. Then setting it back down, he muttered under his breath, "He doesn't scare me." But even he didn't sound convinced. Outside, Obama walked down the long hallway, his steps echoing off the marble floor. Each step sounded deliberate, measured, final. A few aides stood by, startled to see him leave so abruptly. He gave them a polite nod, but his face stayed serious, calm but thoughtful. In that moment, he wasn't just a former president. He was a man carrying the weight of truth and the burden that comes with it. He reached the exit where Secret Service agents waited with umbrellas. The night air hit him, cool, fresh, and silent. The storm clouds were clearing, letting the moonlight pour over the White House lawn. He stopped at the steps, taking a deep breath before speaking softly, not to anyone in particular, but almost to the world itself. "Truth isn't loud," he said. "It's steady. You just have to listen." The agents exchanged glances, unsure if he wanted a response. But Obama didn't wait for one. He simply walked forward, his silhouette disappearing into the waiting car as the doors shut behind him. Back inside, Trump sat alone. The room, once full of his booming voice and defiant energy, felt strangely hollow. He leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on the door Obama had walked through. There was something haunting about that exit, a calm kind of dominance that words couldn't undo. For the first time in a long time, Trump wasn't fighting anyone out loud. He was fighting himself. He looked again at the folder. The words Obama had left hanging in the air still echoed in his head. The truth is patient. It doesn't disappear when ignored. It waits. He opened his mouth to say something, maybe to call in an aide, but stopped. Instead, he leaned forward, staring at that envelope one last time. Then pushed it away. Maybe he didn't want to know what was inside. Maybe he already did. Meanwhile, across the city, Obama's car drove through the quiet streets of Washington, D.C. The rain had left the roads shining under the streetlights, reflections dancing like ghosts of what had just happened. Inside the car, Obama sat in silence, watching the city pass by. He wasn't smiling, but there was peace in his eyes, the kind that comes from standing your ground without losing your calm. He knew what that meeting meant. He knew what it would stir up. But more importantly, he knew the message it carried, not just for Trump, but for everyone watching, that truth. The idea that leadership isn't about dominance, but about honesty, would outlive every argument, every scandal, every headline. When he finally reached home, Obama stepped out, looked up at the clearing sky, and whispered quietly, "It's never about winning the argument. It's about protecting what's right." In a world full of noise, truth doesn't shout, it waits. It waits for leaders who can carry it with courage. It waits for people who can see through pride and choose integrity instead. It waits for us. So the question isn't about who won that night in the Oval Office. It's about what we learned from it. Do we want power built on noise, or leadership built on truth? Because when leaders forget the meaning of truth, it's not just politics that suffers, and it's the people who believed in them. Truth, transparency, and respect, they aren't just words. They are the foundation of every nation that hopes to stand the test of time. What do you think? Is truth still the strongest force in leadership today, or has power rewritten its own rules?